Hello, people, and welcome to another fine episode of Traffic Lights.
If you're listening to this, you maybe hear my watch jingle.
I do. I hear you watched.
There you go.
Right. Anyway, hello and welcome to another episode of Who's That Anime? And we're reaching the end of our journey with Serial Experiments Lain. This is.
I just wish that it felt like we were actually at the end of the journey.
Well, it is. It is. It does certainly end the storyline.
Oh, it ends. It ends.
It ends. Do they explain how it ends? No.
No,
No, but
no.
we'll discuss
We'll get
that.
there. We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there, yeah. So yeah, we're finishing off. This is our last episode on Lane. Let's get cracking.
Oh. Okay. Episode. Oh, sorry. Layer 11.
Yes.
Straight into it. Infornography.
Yeah. Oh, and they jazzed up that scene now.
Wait. Did they? Yes, it's
Yeah.
been infected by the Wired.
Been infected by the Wired.
That's what it looks like. Because it's got like little red broken image type
Alright,
containers.
Yeah.
We also see Lane at the start of this with like all of the wires around her, like properly wrapped up.
Yeah, we touched on that last episode. But yeah, she's taught
Even more wiry.
She's got like crocodile clips dangling from her hair, her bottom lip, and
Yeah.
2 suction plugs on her cheeks. And it's like, what? What the hell is she doing? She's trying to.
Yeah. So, Colin and I have discussed this a little bit off air. Fair. The first half of this episode is essentially experimental jazz.
Yeah, and it's not bad.
It's nice freeform psychedelic jazz.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a flashback of the jazz.
But it's not just a flat, because we get to it starts off in the house. And like we see all the rotten food, and that the house is in like a state of disrepair now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some like sweet guitar licks and some psychedelic, just all over the place sort of stuff.
Mm.
And that's kind of interspersed with some flashbacks, but also some new stuff where she's like, "Hey, am I me?"
Yeah, and other things, and she apparently walked with what's her name, the girl that committed suicide right at the start of the whole thing.
Chisa.
Yeah, Chisa. She walked her home once. Well, walked home from school once. I know they didn't really speak. And she says, "I've got to go this way."
No.
And Lane says, "I'm going this way."
Well, so there's an interesting theme in this, because it's essentially this flashback is, hey, remember all those deaths? It's essentially it's like, remember that one suicide that you never saw, but you were kind of there somehow in a way.
Well, because you're Lane in the Wired.
Because you're Lane. But I also like that one of the things is Lane is Lane.
Lane is Lane.
Lane is Lane. I wanted to note though, I noticed that the sort of the flashback, the shock of the suicide, she was like wide-eyed and clearly shocked. But remembering it, she's just eyes half shut and barely awake. And it's almost like for some reason it doesn't register anymore.
All right, yeah.
It's very weird. And then we get to like more. I've written "Welcome to the Freeform Jazz" episode of Lane.
Good notes.
There's lots of like little text that pops up that says things like, "I don't need to stay here. Think different. Mapped the human genome."
Mm-hmm.
And then I've written, "Remember that other suicide."
Yeah. the person getting hit by the train is the weird face.
Yep.
Guy shoots him in
Then
the.
there's Mr. Yep. The dude shooting himself. Yep.
Yep. Um,
There's then Mr. Blue Bandages, the god. He's kind of being a bit touchy and inappropriate.
he's always that way, isn't he?
and then there's the. Hey, remember that time you tried to choke yourself out in some sort of weird suicide?
Yeah,
She remembers that.
yeah. I'm Lane, and the other one's laughing at us. Oh, look, weird suicide type thing. Well, something along those lines. Oh,
Uh,
trying to commit suicide. Uh, was that? That's basically it. It might also touch on like going into the house again, meeting her parent,
well,
family.
yeah, it does. I think it ends on the thing on the screen that says something like "We need Alice. Love needs you."
Yeah, because then she starts to. Does she go back to Alice in this episode to try and reconcile with her, or is that next episode?
I think. I think that's the next one.
Okay, okay.
Alice is in it at the end of this episode because this is the Haruhi episode.
The Haruhi episode. All right. You might need to explain that for our
Sorry,
viewers.
yeah. For anyone that did not listen to our series on Haruhi Suzumiya, the whole concept of that is that one girl is basically a god and can just at the snap of a finger change things,
Yeah,
and
but she's not allowed to know that.
she doesn't know that. Yeah, but the most important part is that she can reset the memories of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what she's going to do.
Um, then then it gets into sort of Lena's like jacked in like the Matrix, and floaty Godman's back, and then they start having a conversation about the fact that, oh, it's like, how dangerous of you. She's like, I'm just so tired, and he's like, oh, I'm not surprised. You've like emulated your Navi in your brain.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah, some random thing, and then she
Going on like Johnny
complains.
Mnemonic.
Yeah, and then she complains like, "Don't call me that. I'm not like a bit hardware." And he goes, "Ah, you're right. You're more software than hardware."
Yeah, he weirdly he says the line, "You're an executable with a body."
Yeah, Mexico with the body, and everyone else in the world is just apps.
Yeah. Yep.
For the phrase apps came a concept.
It's a good point, actually.
19,
This is 1998, so
yeah, apps was like mid noughties when phones came about, and Apple went, "Hey, we made a phone."
interestingly, the iPhone didn't launch with the App Store.
Did it not?
Nope. The first iPhone did not run apps.
Oh,
That much
all right.
was it was web based, all run through Safari, from what I understand.
Wow.
But they quickly realized that that's not the way it should go, and that it had to be more purpose built.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So yeah, so there you go.
Yeah,
She tells the hum to shut up. The
like, oh, she does. She walks outside and that got the hum and tells it to shut up. She did that in the first episode as well on the train when she was just hearing all that chatter, and she just went, "Well, you
Oh
all
yeah,
shut up," and then
so
everyone
yeah.
kind of stared at her, but it got dead quiet because, well, some weird person shouting that we all shut up in a train. It will go quiet while people stare at her and go, "What?"
You're right. That is the person I am not standing next to on the train. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry if I was being too loud. I'm gonna get off this train
yeah, before something bad happens.
before I'm not allowed to get off this train.
Speed for
um,
speed hits.
but then some sort of weird mystery cloud crosses the road.
Oh yeah, yeah, it kind of like just stands in the shadow of the lamppost
Yeah,
or the telegraph pole or whatever you might call it.
hanging about.
Yeah,
And then Chisa's back,
yeah, she appears from this weird cloud. It's like you know
and
that it's like the opposite scene of like the person standing on the wrong side of the road, staring at someone, and then the bus or something travels in front of them,
oh, they disappear.
and they disappear. It's the reverse of that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Uh, Interestingly, this is like everybody who's died by suicide comes back. Then the guy who shot himself comes back, and he's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, hi, Lane. You know, it's like super easy to just kill yourself."
yeah, and then she says like, "No, it's really hard. You shouldn't do
And
it."
he's like, "But look, yeah, like kill yourself with the gun you have in your hand." Suddenly,
Well, the gun that he somehow materialized and had.
yeah,
Yeah. And then claims that Lane brought him there so he would kill herself.
yep,
And then is it Chasey? It states she shouldn't do it or something because she doesn't do it. Kind of waves the she brings the gun up and the red
yep,
light on the laser sight on the gun is waving around and then she waves it into the air like she just doesn't care. Uh,
yep,
and then someone brings her out of that whole thing.
yep.
Uh,
And then I've written a note here that says, "Was that the future?" I don't know what that means.
when did you watch this episode?
Yesterday.
Because you just sent me the picture like yesterday. It was like, oh, all these notes, and then you already
Yep.
went. I think you were thinking maybe this was a future premonition, and this is how Lane's going to go.
Maybe.
Because yeah, because it's all kind of still in its what we discussed way back in the first episode, where it's still kind of like a pastel color palette, and the shadows are all kind of dark with red splodges in them.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be like the wired encroaching in the underbelly of the world.
Yeah, I can see that because it's suggested that the Wired is like the top layer, the next place where humans should transcend to.
This is going to get so interesting. We then transition to Alice's room.
Is that this episode?
I
Creepy,
Yeah, because this is where Alien Lane
creepy.
comes
Freddy Krueger comes appears through the door. Yeah,
yeah. She's, uh, it's the Freddy Krueger alien body with Lane's head.
yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Where she states that she didn't spread the rumors of
Yep,
her, and that she could wipe her memory or
yep.
something.
Because Alice, yeah, that's right. And then there's like a bit where they talk, and Blaine says something like, "Maybe you're not the only Alice,"
Yeah, she suggests that she might not be the only Alice as well. Um,
which was
which is weird because I don't know where that came from.
I don't know where it come from, and also I don't know that that goes anywhere. I don't think that's a sentence that I don't think then
Yeah, it doesn't seem to resonate anywhere
go
in
anywhere.
later episodes. Um,
Yeah.
and then is it after that or is that the end of the episode?
The so
I watched it
I
today.
think this is where we sort of discussed the idea of like the border being destroyed between the Wired and
Yeah.
the real world, and then wake up the next morning, um, and it's like, oh, morning, Alice, and the two girls, the other two friends, are like running towards her, going, hey, and I think
Oh, oh,
I don't. Alice doesn't remember.
yeah. No, it's basically the four lane, the creepy lane appears. Like creepy Freddy Krueger lane, I should say, appears. She's on a video call with the pony, the one with the bunches in her hair,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
who's trying to start out with a boy.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then hangs up and goes, and then talks to. So when they meet in the morning, Alice goes, "No, I think I'll be up for that," type thing. What you're suggesting there? And she goes, "I didn't talk, say anything about this. No, it wasn't me."
Talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Alice remembers.
and they don't. Yeah, and then they see the hot teacher, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I heard he was going out with an eighth grader. Who's that?" And then Alice
We
tries to,
haven't figured out who that is yet.
yeah, and Alice tries to confess, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
But they said
Yeah.
no,
And
just in order.
there's a moment where it's just like Alice and Lane sort of catch each other at a
Oh
distance, and it sort of like fades out to just the two of them.
yeah,
And then we get creepy Lane
yeah,
back.
with her face.
Yeah.
It's like, what's with that smile? And then the friends meet up with her and go, "Oh, like Lane, yeah, you come to Siberia," type thing.
They're like, yeah, yeah, great. But yeah, she reset everything for everybody except her and
Yeah,
Alice.
yeah. Uh, but then
And
was that
that's it.
is that the end of that one? Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's the end of that one.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so that's
How do you feel about that one?
oh, I mean, the first quarter of it is at least like that weird flashback bit is like, oh cool, I didn't need to watch like the last 10 episodes. I can just watch this flashback and got as much information as I got from the rest of the show.
Yep,
That reminds me of
true.
the movie. That reminds me of the movie Pixels. Do you ever watch Pixels?
Nope.
What's his name? And like aliens come down, but they basically taking the form of like 80s video games.
Oh, it's Adam Sandler.
And that's it, yeah. So you can skip the entire movie, right? And just watch the end credits because the end credits is an entire movie in uh 8-bit form, and it's better, better in the movie. There's
Oh man.
no random one line quips of like my baby, my boy. You should steal that from what's his name, the creator of Pac-Man. Who gets eaten by Pac-Man in it. Uh, anyway, yeah.
So what
Uh,
do you think of this one?
this episode, I don't know, wasn't much in it, and it's I suppose moved on to a point where it's trying to maybe get to a point of where it can close the story off, tie up loose ends.
It's I don't feel like it's rushing through it, but I feel like and instead I feel like it's been dragging its heels for maybe two or three episodes, and
Yeah,
now it's sort of picking up again.
yeah. But I don't know. I'm going to go with 6 on this one though.
I I agree, but I only think it's a six because like I it only ramped up towards the end where it got really interesting again.
Hmm. It's like it was there. Depends when it was aired. Maybe this was aired after like a wee break for it. It was off maybe the air for a few
Yeah.
weeks, and then this is like, oh shit, we better catch people up on what happened. Lots of deaths. Everyone died. That
Ah,
was all the
okay,
flashback was.
it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, layer 12, landscape.
Landscape. Layer 12. Landscape. Like that.
Yep, landscape.
Yeah.
The last episode has the best pronunciation, which I'm looking forward to doing.
I can't even remember what that was.
We'll get there.
Is this the one where it starts with the face of Lane in like the TV?
Yes. Oh wait,
Or is
no,
that the
it's the
next one?
next one. Yep.
Okay. How did this one start off again? I literally watched it like
I
6 hours ago.
also watched this yesterday, and it says Lane is taking Alice's place in my notes.
Lane's taking Alice's place.
Yeah, and
Oh, you mean like
just
new Groupie Lane is taking Alice's place where she's the fun, happy friend in the trio,
yes,
the coven.
yes,
And
yeah. She's like, because we see Alice becoming where Lane started, like at the opposite side of the class, looking in on all the friends talking and discussing things. They've kind of switched places.
yeah, and Lane is now Groupie Lane is now kind of looking back at her, saying,
Yes.
"Going, haha, I got your friends now, you, Alice, ha 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 ha." Something like that. Not
It's,
quite,
I think it's
not
like
like
we
that.
talk about the idea of like rewriting bad memories, and other lanes are memories of other lanes. Like lane, this is where we get into like the concept of the abstract, where lane is a piece of software that only exists because it's a remnant memory of the lane that did exist that may not exist anymore. Maybe.
Yeah, or not in anyone else's memory anyway. Yeah,
Yes.
and
So, oh man.
then isn't there like other things where like there's new broadcasts saying come on screen and basically tells you some news and then it says all hail Lane type thing.
Yeah, I think there's something about Protocol 7 and like the fact that it's it's bi-directional,
Yeah,
between the real world and the wired, and that probably goes to what you were talking about the
Zandu.
in the previous episode about Xanadu,
Yeah,
like how it's not a one-way street of like I request, it's a two-way street of information.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So that's
yeah, the news broadcast, it says let's all love Lane.
yeah. Let's all love Lane. Let's all love
Let's
Lane,
all love Lane,
and it chants it
and it does, and I think that's the thing is like it seems like there's this weird thing where it feels like Lane has in a way connect, like, because it talks about the collective unconscious and the idea that somehow Lane has connected everyone's collective subconscious.
to the wired.
Yes,
Yeah,
because that border no longer exists.
yeah, and you meet the kid again with his group of friends, who's finds out Lane's an angel or something. Where's that next episode?
I've got the next bit with the Men in Black being back.
Oh, and they're in the. Yes, I think there's a bit before that, and basically says, "Oh yes, I kissed an angel," and the girl got jealous. Who gets jealous?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. That's right. Although, how does he remember that?
because he remembers these things. She's never wiped his memory either. It seems.
Okay, so
Because
yeah, it was more selective than that then.
yeah, and also she's. I think there's bits of discussion either in this one or the last episode where she's like, "Oh, understanding the world's easy." Type thing. I used to hide away in the shadows and because I thought it was really complicated and hard going.
Yeah,
So
that's the start of this episode. She says, "I had no idea the world was so easy."
yeah, so she's finally kind of coming of age and understanding the world and seeing it's not as bad and evil as she first thought. Which
Yeah.
maybe go into further discussion once we finish the whole
Yep.
thing.
I have a note here that says stop talking about Eddie.
Stop talking about Eddie.
I need to have less cryptic notes.
You need to make notes that they can look at and understand. Eddie's the
Yeah.
god. Yeah,
Sorry?
Eddie's the god.
Okay.
Sure, you called him Eddie the god, and like when he first appeared.
Yeah.
Uh,
Stop talking about
or he's the guy from Guilty Gear who has that big shadow. I'm sure he's called Eddie.
or the guy from Tekken.
Or the guy from Tekken. Or I suppose maybe that's what Ed the Duck's called now. He might be called, going by his old name, Eddie the Duck.
I mean, what we're establishing right now is that Eddie is a fairly common name in media.
It is. It is. Anyway.
So
What's
this is the bit where the men in black are back and waiting in their car
in a
uh,
underground car park or car park
in an
somewhere?
underground car park for some guy to arrive,
Hmm.
and I believe give them money. I guess.
Yeah. I think it's the old guy that they took Lane to that one time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
and they go, "Oh, are you paying you paying us off to get out of here?" And he was like, "Yeah, where are you going to run to?" "Oh, I'm planning to run to where there's no wired or satellites about." And they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, good luck with
That
that."
basically get off the grid.
Yeah, and
Mr. Businessman, as I've written his name, his kind of goal is trying to connect the worlds.
because they do comment on that as well. So what's the point of connecting everyone up to the wire type thing? Oh, to enlighten you all, I think is the term that you used or something, or it's
Yeah.
fun or something.
Yeah.
Uh, and he advises the two goons to do the same, get off the grid and get away from it all.
Yep.
Only to get what's his name, Hojo, suddenly like breaks his back in 5 different places with his arms getting
Does.
crippled.
He has a full on. If you've seen the movie, 2019 Suspiria, full on, or 2018 Suspiria breakdown, where his body just like mushes.
And cracks up in all the places, and the
Yep.
other guy scans his brain and sees Lane inside his feet, inside the head.
Yeah. I wrote Lane just mind killed that guy.
Yeah, it's just got the muscles to break all his back and arms in different locations. And he says, "What's wrong with you?" It's not
And
like, "Oh
then
my god."
the thing is, of course, he then gets killed, and I've written. So I wrote Lane just mind killed that guy, and then I wrote underneath, and that other guy.
Okay.
But what does that suggest then? That suggests to me that she doesn't just have a control over the mental connection with people; she can control the physical as well.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Or I don't know. I don't think it's really possible to really make your brain think, "Oh, you know what would be a good idea? Maybe we should bend the back like in this direction with your entire muscle strength."
If you think about it, there's a bit at the end of this episode that kind of discuss like the bit at the end with the machinery flying in one direction, in the single direction.
Hmm.
That kind of goes to my theory that she just has full control.
Yeah,
Like she's literally a god. There is nothing she can't do.
yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly seems to be omnipotent. Uh,
We can we go back very briefly to the idea we talked about briefly about the concept that Lane, as she is, sort of exists as a memory of a memory of a memory of a person or a thing. that software. It's like copying software. You know, like it
Yeah.
says one to another to another, and it disperses. I
Yeah.
think is what the metaphor is. And then that thing earlier on, we were talking about the chip
Uh-huh.
in the previous episode, the previous recorded episode that we did when we talked about the chip that she got, that was the knight's chip,
Uh-huh.
and she says, "Is this going to delete me?"
Uh-huh.
And Taro says, "No, it's nothing like that." But if you think about it, it was supposed to be some sort of what was it?
Mind altering
Shit.
thing.
It was. It did a very specific thing.
It'll open your
It
memory.
disrupts human memory. Disrupts human memory.
Yeah.
So, to my mind, that suggests that the Knights were trying to erase Lane as that software in everyone's memory.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Saw how powerful she was and wanted to replace her with their own lane.
Well, they don't want her at all. They want the other guy.
Oh, yeah? They want him.
They want Eddie.
Eddie.
They don't want Lane.
Yeah.
Like, because Lane is a threat to who they think the god is.
I
So sort of like the
suppose.
false prophet situation, because they know that Lane, well, they theorize that Lane came after Eddie.
Yeah.
I think we probably talk about the fact that that probably isn't the case, but they see her as like a threat to him,
Mm-hmm.
or to my mind, that's what it sounds like.
Well,
Like
maybe, because when she's speaking with Taro, we didn't actually mention it. He goes on about the truth, the justice of it, which is truth type thing.
yeah,
When she's
it feels
on the date.
yeah, it feels to me like there's a lot. This I completely missed the very first time I watched this, but it's the idea that she is literally like a file that
Uh-huh.
is as soon forgotten is done. It's software. You know, as soon as you are no longer on that last hard drive or piece of media, you no longer exist until you're recreated.
Yeah.
But it's like she's software for existence,
Yeah. It kind of
and
delves
that
into
her
that.
imprint. Yeah, I like this is already way too much for me.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's certainly is implicated that she's software, essentially, to the
yeah, well,
existence.
yeah,
And
she's an
the kind
executable with body.
yeah, and it kind of comes to that in this episode because
Yeah,
Alice goes and visits Lane in her house, and she comes
yeah.
in.
That's the next bit is that after we kill those guys, it switches focus to Alice
Yeah,
for the next little.
who's now outside Lane's house, and she buzzes, but no answer. She goes in,
She sees
and
all the cables.
yeah,
Like
all the cables.
I've written your power bill. Your power bill just must be insane.
It doesn't matter. She's hacked it, so she's paying it for nothing, and someone else is paying it all
She's
for.
like it's like a fucking crypto mining operation she's running at her house.
Uh, and it just gets worse and worse. I mean, like, so you see the picture of the side of that house multiple times during the series.
Yep. Yep.
First time you saw it with like the dudes hanging out, and she looks at the window, and then you look up there, and there's nothing there. It's nice, a proper wall, and it's only in like the last 2 to 3 episodes it came out because they saw the picture of it again at some point one of the last couple of episodes, and it's just like a wee bunch of cables hanging there. And then in this
Yep.
episode, it's like full on, like the entire window's gone, and it's just cabling, and it's
Yeah,
just like,
big chunky cables everywhere.
yeah, it's just like a proper cyberpunk, neopunk kind of esque looking cables coming out this building. It's like ivy overgrowing the window.
Yeah, the
Um,
the sound the sound is weird in this section.
yeah.
It's like weirdly distorted.
Oh yeah, yeah. The voices are getting destroyed, but she had that a while in Alice's room when she was talking to her.
Yeah,
It,
and then she's like
weird,
looking at the walls and
weird
the
echoey.
yeah, it's like a weird echoey, and then she like opens the front door and there's like it looks like there's been a paint massacre because there's like red and blue stripes all over, like streaks all over the walls, and then we see the sister going beep beep beep.
With her hand out like
Yep,
this with
it's
the phone
joyous.
symbol. Yeah, she didn't
Uh,
obviously leave.
so Alice makes her way upstairs and into Lane's room, and she finds Lane taking a cable nap.
Yeah, yeah. She just made a doobie of out in the excess cables.
Oh, nice link back to the theme tune, Colin.
Doobie, doobie. Yeah.
Yeah, duvet.
Well, that's the reason why they went with that song because she
A
sleeps
cable
under
duvet.
she sleeps under cables only
Oh
in this
shit.
episode.
Yeah. She just like emerges like okay, oh, oh hi.
Hi, Alice. How's it going?
Yeah.
And then Alice bleats her eyes out, saying, "Why did you make everyone else forget but left me in the loop?" It's
Why
like,
did you let me remember?
yeah, it's so unfair. And then it's like,
She's like it's actually kind of genuinely sad that moment because it is that thing of like the effect of memory. Whereas like, well, even if no one else remembers to ridicule, I still remember not only the thing that people ridiculed, but also the ridicule.
yeah, yeah, and and she's like, I didn't mean to do that, Alice. You're my friend, I type thing, and says that she
Yeah.
loves her and stuff like that, and Alice goes all a bit weird.
I was gonna say it's weirdly intimate. Like even before she says how she loves her, like it's kind of it's trending that way.
Yeah.
Um, and then we talk about like how all humans are now connected, as we kind of alluded to,
Hmm.
and it's like this goes into the idea of like Lane being, or like I've written sort of the idea as like a physical manifestation. Like
Uh-huh.
like there's other stuff we kind of need to go into in the last episode because whether the real world is a real world or not is a question I still have. But it seems to me like we were talking about the idea of her being the concept of software. She like is a software, but she's a physical entity, and that software is passed on to other people by them being around her.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
copying the existence of her into their memory, which then allows them to spread that memory by telling it to other people.
Yeah. I think that's it. And she didn't want to erase Alice's memory because she's
No.
her friend, and she didn't want to connect with Alice either because of that. Why did she keep her as an individual?
Yeah.
Um, and then that's where
Then it,
she kind of goes into the point. Well, I'm software for basically existence. It's like,
yes, and we're
the,
we're all software.
and then we're all software. You're kind of like the app. You're kind of apps to that because Alice is like, what? Just like we were like, what? Like,
Oh.
if you're watching the video, you can just see Steve just going, rubbing his face with his hands and going, what?
It's so I think the biggest barrier that I struggle with this show is the concept of the physical and metaphysical and digital.
Mhm.
Where's the crossover there? Or is there never a physical? Are we seeing representation of physicality in an existence that sits at another layer to another layer of a digital existence? If you see what
Well,
I mean.
yeah, I get what you're saying. So, I mean, essentially, yes. I mean, all we
So,
are seeing in our eyes is light, which makes these objects real, essentially.
so, so what we're saying is, though, when it boils down to it, is that the world that Lane is impacting in the way that she
Mhm.
is not a physical world.
Uh,
It's a digital representation of a world that thinks it's a physical world.
I mean, in her, it's kind of hard because the way they work the wired with her is always kind of been like the same kind of world. Like she's always appeared in locations next to people when she's talking to people in the wired. Um,
Yeah.
she's always been in her other world, which was meant to be like the physical world. So it is the physical world, and she is kind of crossed between them, and there's like the wired is a layer above that. Oh, that's what they claimed anyway.
But why can't it be? Why can't it? Why does it have to be a physical world?
But it's just because that's what the world that we live in. Essentially, I think
No, but
that's
that's exactly what I mean. Is that why is it not? What if it's just a simulation?
um. I don't think it is
Because
because
there's the potential for us to be a simulation right now.
yeah, it's just all it is. Agent Smiths are just planting doubt in our mind to keep us obedient to the and
I
not
don't
being
know.
too perfect.
I just feel like there's a thing in this where there's a barrier that I struggle to get my brain across, which is the idea. Like I love the concept of people in a way being software because they're leaving their imprint on people that can then lastingly impact other people based on the imprint left.
Mhm. I mean,
So it sort of it gives credence to the idea of like people suffer two deaths: the day you die, and the day that your name is uttered for the last time.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, not many people haven't suffered second death.
Well, I think that's the thing is it's sort of like I had a discussion with my brother the other day about the idea of like you never know the last time you're going to do something until you stop doing it.
Mhm.
Like
That's
most of the time, like
that's
he
like
was referring to like going to do something like to play a game of football because like, I
mhm.
used to do that every day with a certain group of people at a certain time in a certain place, and then one day I just didn't do that again.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the saying that it's all you always find it in the last place you looked, which
Yeah,
is it also
and
referring to the point where you find it.
yeah, I feel like yeah. Okay, we're gonna need to move on with this episode, otherwise we'll never get anywhere.
No,
Um,
no, there's so many
then we do beating, 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 beating.
beat.
Yeah, it's where Allison and Lane is feeling Alice's heartbeat.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's beaten. Because
Yep,
basically lays like, oh, what's the point of having a physical body? I'm going to leave this body type
yep.
thing. And Alice says, well, no, no, it's not the way to do it. You'll lose out the sensation of feeling and stuff like that.
It's she says I feel scared, but it's okay.
Yeah,
Like
because
I don't know. I'm getting hung up on the physicality. Anyway, floaty god comes back.
Yeah, this time in the real world though, because
Well, he threatens to give Lane a thorough debugging, which is weird.
sexual.
And then he like has a ghost hand that Alice then sees. He's like, "Take my ghost hand."
Yeah, yeah. It's basically what's this, and takes my ghost hand in, and because she was like, "Oh, I don't understand. You're meant to leave the physical world, as it were."
Yep.
Uh,
But I think it's this is where she kind of starts fucking with him, and like this is where we get down into the idea of like, well, uh, like what if you weren't God? Like what if you're just God now, but not the God? It's like who
yeah,
gave you the right to be this? Who made you? Like you, if you made me, you brought me here. Who brought you here?
yeah.
It's like, oh, what? What are you talking about? Ugh.
It's all flummoxed by it. Yeah, it's like I can do that, and then he essentially starts creating his own body
Yeah, he creates a corporeal form from the air.
from the air. The like flesh starts to form around him, and all the machines in Lane's room get sucked into her body,
Yep.
and he becomes a big eyeball, which immediately sends Alice into complete utter meltdown as she stands there crying her eyes out and doing nothing
Let's be
else.
fair. That's fair.
That's uh, that is fair. I mean, yeah, yeah, Ricky Grievous. That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't deny that that's not something that would be mentally shattering.
So I think I think the thing is that she basically claims that she's the true god of the Wired, and that's what spirals him out of control. He was an acting god.
Yeah, it was mentioned that he's just an acting going, "Oh," and he creates that, and then that body of flesh essentially is the end of that episode.
Well, no, she crushes him to death with electrical equipment with her mind.
Does she? Is
Yeah.
that what happens? I blinked.
She picks up like with her like this is what I was talking about is the idea that she controls more than just the mind,
Yeah.
because she literally picks up with her brain bits of computer equipment and smashes him to death and forms like a big pile of rubble.
Did I miss that? Because I knew that happened. I knew it was happening at this point.
It starts episode 13. It starts out with like that.
Yeah, yeah. So he kind of has like a bit. Does he die? Does he get crushed in that? No, right at the end of 12,
Yeah,
does it?
he's toast. Yeah, he's toast.
No.
He is
All
no
right.
more.
Maybe maybe I didn't notice that bit, but I kind of knew that that was a scene because I've seen it before. Um, but yeah, and I was like, "Where's that scene?" Well, that's because I blinked and missed it. I have a terrible tendency of half paying attention to the show.
What do
Um,
you rate this one then, Colin?
it's giving us answers, almost, sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll go with episode. Uh, let's say a 7 on this one. Seems
Okay.
decent.
I uh I think this is probably the best episode so far.
Yeah, it's certainly.
So I'm gonna give this one a 9.
Ooh, a 9.
I think like for me it's the combination of like starting to try and answer some things. There were some really cool scenes in general. like the underground car park, and then Alice discovering the house, and then the ending scene is also like pretty powerful. And there's like a lot of very humanizing moments for Lane as well that we don't get a lot of because she gets so pissed off at being called hardware or software annoys her.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kind of heart beating thing and like the idea of like there's nothing wrong with a physical body thing was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that one.
All right.
Um, and that then leads us on to our final episode,
Yep.
Layer 13, Ego, or as it's said in the show, Ego.
Ego.
It sounds like Ego, like the waffle.
Oh, you know, it's close enough. It's missing a G.
Yeah. So we this one starts out with Lane on the screen saying that there is no real her.
Mhm.
And I think this then holds even more water for my theory
Okay.
that who she was is no longer there.
Yeah, I suppose.
She is a remnant of a person, but by nature of what she is, she's duplicated. And if you think about the idea of like, oh, you're this Lane, but you're different, it's like
Uh,
a malformation of software or a bad copy or an alteration.
oh yeah, yeah. Someone's modded it.
Like, or like, yeah, like when you hey, remember when we did that thing? Uh, you don't remember the time you did the thing. You remember the memory, and then the next time you remember the thing, you remember the memory of the memory. So it degrades over time.
I suppose, yeah. That's essentially why you don't remember everything.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and that obviously you have capacity as well, but there's that concept that even with infinite capacity, which in theory she technically does because it's just the world is the expanse with which she can exist. But if you can imagine how many times that data would then copy,
Yeah.
you can see how you might end up with Lane that's not Lane,
Yeah. Which then
or an
comes
instance of Lane that's not Lane.
yeah, which then comes into the role of this episode where she essentially takes herself out of the world completely and kind of restores it. Uh
Yeah,
so she's not in the physical world anymore. Or the world.
no, we kind of come back into the episode as I've written as previously on Brian using as society because it was the weird like flesh monster.
Mhm.
Uh, he's dead. Alice is now crying because she's been completely traumatized by what's happened.
Yeah.
Alice's crying is very difficult to listen to.
I find her dubbing character very difficult to listen to from the get-go. I made a mention of it like first or second episode of us.
He did.
It's just not. Uh,
In certain circumstances, I think it works quite well, but the majority of the time, it just falls flat.
yeah, yeah.
But then Lane hugs her into silence, which I liked.
She like comes to her as she did try to she did fight her off and like make Lane bleed,
Yeah,
which I suppose is another kind of like humanizing.
the humanizing thing.
Yeah,
Uh, and then we go to the family,
you see the family. Oh
and
yeah, they're
yeah, uh, and the friends actually.
yeah.
This is the sort of start of the removing yourself from the situation. It's like this is like either before or just without. It would seem.
Mhm.
Um,
So the
and then we
family
see,
families
yeah, go on.
have a nice meal, and the
Yeah,
daughter, the only one daughter, the older sister, is there,
yeah,
and they're actually having a decent conversation and actually acting like a family
yeah.
rather than
And she's
all
like,
the
just want to eat her doesn't want to eat her food because she's on a diet,
Yeah,
and I think the dad's talking about, hey, I've got something coming in the mail, you'll need to pay for it. She's like, it's not another computer part, is it?
yeah,
Like, yeah, it is.
yeah. It's just your kind of like standard like family talk. It's
Yeah.
very more showing that they're a family now than what they ever were in the time of Lane being around. And Lane's
Mm,
not there. She's totally wiped herself in the tail. There's not even a place set for
yeah.
her.
And then we see the friends as well.
Yeah,
And of course they're there without her
yeah.
because it's now is this hmm, is this the bit where Alice is looking at her phone?
Uh, yeah. So basically, they come in and they go, "Oh yeah, hey Alice, how's it going?" Type thing. You want to go to Siberia tonight? And says, "Yeah, let's go to Siberia. I'll just call her." And they all look at her and go, "Who's her?" And then she looks at her phone and goes, "Uh, I don't know." And then it's like, "You don't mean Chelsea? Chisi?
Chisa.
Chisa?" As she's then across the play
Yeah.
yard. You know, like, last time we took her there, she didn't really mingle well.
She's basically become the stand-in for what happened with Lane.
Yeah, she's basically lame, but at the same time, it's
She's not dead.
not dead and doesn't seem to be part of the group as much as Lane was. They didn't seem to want to socialize her.
Then we see then we see Taro and the group of friends. Taro talking about or seeing a picture of a girl on his gun phone. His gun phone.
Yeah, how cool is that, man? That's the type of phone that we should have now. Get rid of your iPhone
I
and
was
Androids.
wondering what was happening there when he just pulls up a gun and then just goes. It's like, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
It's such a cool concept. Unfortunately, in America, you would just get shot.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Particular.
get my phone out. Yes. The phone, the
Yeah.
phone.
I mean, if you're white, you might stand a chance, but
Yeah.
otherwise, not going to be good for you.
No, no. And then you bump into the crazy suicide guy. It was in the episode 2
Yeah.
with
Yep.
his younger sister or daughter.
Uh, is that not the delivery guy?
No, I don't think it was the delivery guy. I'm sure it's the guy. It was the guy that she summoned who had the gun in the episode 11 because he had the hat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I had his daughter, and it was or his younger sister, I think. Because come on, gotta go and see mom. Because T stops and goes, "Hey, that's a cool phone," type thing, or something like that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, yeah. His mind is also tricked out.
Yeah, but you don't get to see it because it's a real gun
Yeah.
with a laser pointer. Uh, and then what's his name? Run up. They run up a hill somewhere off the road. And there's subplot in this where there's text appears and it says something along the memories. If no one remembers, then you don't exist or something.
That's exactly my point. It's the second death.
Yeah, exactly what he's
Uh,
on about. Yeah.
we also see God in a suit.
Oh yeah, yeah, because he passes the kid Taro.
Yep. And on top of that, he looks over to the guys working in the cherry picker, and it's the guys in the scouters.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
the
everyone has been reset in a way, but also it seems paths have changed to stop them from doing what they were doing again, maybe?
Yeah, certain things have been rewritten. I could say the god is a bit unhappy about his job, though. He's like, stupid people in
Yes.
to work, they're stupid. And he's not been fired yet. And he's not been hit by a train. Also, the world is a lot brighter in that scene.
That is true. It is.
Has
It's the first time in the show that we have that level of brightness.
and vivid colors. The sky is a bit
And
bluer and not white. And everyone seems to be living a happy life.
yep.
Uh,
And then we get to the usual start of the show, which is the busy crosswalk.
yeah. Is Lane in that busy crosswalk walking this bit?
She is in that area and she's alone and forgotten, but she's free. Lane is free.
Lane is free, and she's having a big essential conversation with her other self in the Wired.
Yeah. This is where we start and like, okay, let's break this down.
Let's break it down.
The Wired isn't the upper layer to the real world.
No, that's what Lane's saying.
Wired is connected to something else.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, that's the set up for a sequel. Where Lane goes on extraterrestrial pathways. I mean,
I don't.
no, don't.
I I think
hmm
I'm right, and that the Wired was attached to the Wired is another layer on top of a digital existence.
All right, yeah. So top of the Matrix.
Like in the simulation, you could connect to the internet.
Mhm.
But because the two existences are one and the same, but with different levels of awareness,
Uh-huh.
barrier between them is essentially the knowledge that they are one and the same.
Okay. Yep.
So there is no need for a physical body because you don't have one.
Right.
You
Yep.
have a physical body, which is like the confine, the construct that you're bound to because it is the knowledge set that you're working with. And that the suicide is the understanding that that is the it's sort of a metaphorical switch of the suicide is a representation of a change of understanding.
Okay.
So like you there is the real world, which I think Lane does exist in. I think there is real Lane.
Okay. Yeah.
And I feel like the lonely Lane is exists in that digital layer above the real world.
Right. Yeah.
But then we have this simulation which is running parallel to real existence,
Right.
and the Wired is the layer above that.
Okay. Fine. So let's say if we go back to the seemingly pointless episode, Kids, right?
Yes.
Where it talks about these kids in the experiment and they're all locked up in like a grid and feeding energy into this big psychic ball thing, which apparently explodes and kills them.
Yeah.
Could it be that these kids are in the simulation that you're talking about, and therefore Lane is part of the kids being omnipotent in that group and constantly cycling things in? I mean, there's no other connection in the show except when they talk about it for some random reason in that one episode.
It is interesting. I do wonder where that happened.
Uh,
Because in my mind, like it's not going to be the digital world above the real world. It could be the real world, or it could be the simulation, because it has to act within the confines of real life,
yeah,
real life or simulated real life.
yeah,
So if it happened in the simulation, it's interesting. And I would almost buy that it does happen in the simulation because uh again, it's like one of these sort of other metaphorical things of like building an energy. It's like
hmm,
the energy to do what, and the energy was to link consciousness,
yeah,
because it's all about this idea. It all perpetuates on this idea of the planes of existence between the digital and the physical not being a barrier. They are one and the same, or can be one and the same if the barrier is brought down.
yeah,
So to me, it's almost like all of these things are different metaphors for trying to dissolve this barrier. Like Lane's existence in the simulation is to dissolve the barrier.
yeah.
But yeah, it's I yeah. But the thing is with that, and this is where it gets kind of weird, because obviously says she's having this conversation with herself.
Hmm.
She gets super angry and like just causes her other self to glitch out and disappear. And so I'm getting to something, but then it's the dad, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He basically there's a hole open in the sky, and the dad appears
Yep.
and says, "Hey,
Tea with
Lane."
daddy in the sky.
Yeah. Hi, Daddy.
And this is the thing that gets me, where it starts to get a bit weirdly religious in tone,
Hmm.
because the dad asks, because she's obviously, we've heard Lane say how much she loves Alice,
Yeah.
right? But then the dad asks, he says, "You love them all, don't you?" And she says, "Yes." And then like we see Lane for the first time, like having she cries, like we've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that idea where we're sort of extrapolating again from the idea of a god, because God loves all,
Well,
right?
at least that's what we're taught as. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I love the imagery and stuff like that. I think it's fascinating. Um, and I think in this instance, it seems to me like that's the kind of last piece of the thing. It's like, no, you are the god of this. Like you were, and you've extricated yourself from it.
Okay.
So like Lane now is not, because the if you think about the memories as separate entities, and each entity can learn a different thing, we're sort of into the territory again of Haruhi with uh what's her name, Yuki,
Uh-huh.
uh where her different existences can learn different things, but then can transition that information back to the singular entity and right around.
Mm.
So every entity can know as much as every entity.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's this, like, upon Lane extricating herself from the simulation and the wired and pulling herself back into this digital world
Mm.
that I think she's potentially been created from.
Yeah.
or in, and then implanted into the simulation.
Hmm.
I think she's able to take the knowledge of everything that's happened back to that space, and in doing that, has maintained that sort, as we said, the kind of the two-way connection
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
uh, with the simulation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The whole series is essentially a metaphor for something.
Yep. I mean, what it does really well. I mean, obviously we're still not quite at the end. I also want to point out that the bear suit is back in that scene. So
Yeah. And the dad said, you know, you don't have to wear that.
yeah, it's like, but it's awesome. So do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but you're right. Like I think the things that this series does really well is that it's incredible to me that something that was released in 1998 has remained so poignantly relevant.
Yeah.
Like because it's like I mean it's still like a lot of it's dated and things like that, but the concepts underlying it about the border between the digital and the real are really interesting, even if they are absurdist within the show. Like I feel like here we asked, like right now, you and I are having a conversation from miles away,
Yeah. We are.
and it's blurring the lines between the real and the digital.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that, like, particularly for something that was created at the time, even before the real big boom, I think, which was probably like the early to mid 2000s.
Uh, yeah, it was great just at the end, at the start of it, I think. 1998, where it was certainly, I think it was a lot more popular in Japan at the time, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
They had the
I know,
infrastructure
but
going through their electric cables, I believe, to get better
uh,
broadband, well, bandwidth.
yeah, that's fair.
Uh,
But it's interesting. Um, I feel like I don't know, like I think I'm thinking a layer too far. I think I deep down I know that I am way off base with my conjecture. Um, I think I've created that construct to allow me to cope with the fact that I don't deal well with the idea of the physical and digital being the same.
yeah. So let's get back to that. Let's talk about this again in a moment because essentially we've still got a bit in the episode come out,
Yeah.
and that's kind of must be worked into the future
Yes.
because
Uh,
Lane's on top of a bridge over a road.
she's still late.
If
She's
she's
still as she always has been.
Yeah, she's still Lane, the 14-year-old kid, looking over the road, and there's a couple. It turns out that's Alice. I thought it was her older sister actually, and
So did I. I actually wrote sister and
yeah,
then scored it out, and it was like, holy shit, grown up Alice.
yeah, grown up Alice, and they obviously plan to maybe have a kid or something, or getting like she's married and they're getting rooms ready, and says, "Ah, I'll let you do anything as long as you let me choose the blinds or something." I
Yep.
can't remember what she says to her husband. And then she
I
spots
think it's
Lane.
drapes.
Yeah, ah, drapes, blinds, same things. Unless she's got a four post king suite bed in her room and have drapes around that. But anyway, she spots Lane on the bridge and goes, "Oh wait, I know her. I think I'm going to go and speak to her." This 14-year-old
Yep.
kid on her own on a bridge. Hi, do I know you? Were you like something in a school that I taught type thing? And that, and Lane goes, "Hi, good to meet you." To like stop her from going, remembering her, I think, and basically
Yep.
just basically goes, "Hi, I'm Alice. Oh, hi, I'm Lane. Nice to meet you." Type thing. I'll see you around, Lane.
Well, there is a moment though when she says, "I'm Lane." She says, "Lane," and it's for a moment I was convinced that that was going to cause everything to collapse.
Yeah,
Like just that interaction was going to cause, like that name would trigger something.
resonate in
But it didn't.
Alice and
Yeah, but
start
it didn't.
start the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
And then she also says goodbye, and then says, "I'll see you around, Lane." And Lane then goes, "Yes, we can meet whenever you want. We're all connected." And
Yep.
bringing it back to being the wires everywhere again. Only
Yep.
no one's on it.
Yes. And it sort of ends with Lane on the TV or the computer screen saying, "I'll always be right next to you."
In a creepy way.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
I I I had a thought there and it's gone. Oh,
Ups.
yeah. So, okay. Who who put Lane where she is
Who put Lane where she is?
in the digital
In the digital world.
or in the real, like whatever you want to call it, like however in the world that's connected to the wired, if it's not connected to the real world or whatever that thing there
Mhm.
is, I think there's a third entity, but regardless of what it is, who put her where she is?
Uh, it's hard to say because it's made out to be that the Eric the God Eric,
Eddie.
Eddie, even Eddie then, Eddie the God Eddie, uh, Godzilla.
I think it's Eri in the Japanese. So
Yeah. Um, I think he claims that he brought her there, but I don't think that's the case unless it's because of the fact that you put the code in the wires protocol, and it brought her, and she's part of like the EFI thing, and she's brought into
ELF.
exist. Yeah, brought into existence because everyone's now connected, and therefore in a higher plane or aliens, just aliens.
So here's the thought: what if this is an Ouroboros?
All right, so tail eating the mouth.
What if she is a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Wow, you did have that episode about the prophecy where sister went insane.
What if Lane is responsible for her own injection every time? And I say every time because she never ages, she never changes.
Hmm.
And now she's dipping back into where she wants to. But what if she wants to do it all again? She
Uh,
can control everything.
yeah, well, that was one of the last points that she had with her other self in the Wire. It was like, why don't we just start all over again? And then she got kind of annoyed
Yep.
at that.
What if that? But what if that's been What if that's what's been happening until now?
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's
not.
been a cycle of her getting to the point where she starts not knowing anything,
Mhm.
thinking she's part of a family. Maybe not in some cases, maybe she's somewhere else, but every time it ends up with her realizing her true potential and then forgetting it and going back to the start.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, that's a concept that's been played out before, for sure.
Well,
Uh,
it's the thing that interests me about this is it's the Matrix, right?
yeah, it is pretty much the Matrix concept of people are all kind of digital constructs. Well, this is what you're coming out with.
Not even that. I think the construct, the idea of how many times has this happened before,
Yeah,
that doesn't happen until the Matrix sequels.
Matrix sequels. Well, the Matrix wasn't out at that time either.
Well, it wasn't, but I imagine it was written by then.
Yeah, but
I doubt they had a script though for Matrix Revelations, which I think was the third one.
yeah,
And that's the third one is where they introduce the idea of the architect. Is it the architect?
the architect, yeah, the guy, the white guy in the
Yep.
big white
And
room.
that's his whole thing. It's like we've done this over and over and over.
Yeah, but has it not been mentioned that before? Was that not mentioned in earlier?
I don't think so. I think that's a reveal in that one.
Was it not up
It's
on
the
the?
idea that if he's not the first one,
Yeah, maybe. Certainly, that's where it's
having this situation.
forced into it.
Yeah, we have in this situation, whereas that Lane, ironically, is still the first one. She's always been the only one,
Uh huh.
but she just doesn't remember until she does, and then when she does, she forgets.
Yeah, maybe it's just too hard for her to remember. It actually
No,
hurts.
I think it's a deliberate act.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that. So in the Matrix, they've done that, and I'm sure there's been other shows that's kind of had that same concept.
I'm sure there has, but if you think about it, we know the inflection point, or what it might be, is that it gets to the stage where Lane is having that after extricating herself from the situation, Lane has the conversation with the other memory of herself
Mm-hmm.
that's saying, "Hey, just forget it. Let's start again."
Yeah,
And
certainly
then at this time, she doesn't do it.
not straight away anyway. She certainly goes back into the world, the future.
Yeah, but she doesn't make everybody forget everything and just start right back at the start.
No, not yet.
She chooses to allow the world to continue without the knowledge of her and changes it enough that it will not repeat itself in a way that would be a problem.
Definitely. Yeah, because also the conversation with the other self is on about, oh, you've successfully managed to stop all those unnecessary deaths
Yeah.
in it. Uh, yeah, so that's the end of that episode, essentially.
It is.
Uh, and there's still a bit, some other things I would say to talk about as a whole for the series afterwards.
Okay.
So, what do you rate it?
Rate the do you want to rate the episode first? Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Uh, I'll go first. I don't know. I suppose it's an 8. Starts to answer questions while not answering questions again by bringing out new questions. It ends it so it's potentially open up for future episodes if they were decided to revisit.
I I'll give it a 9 again. I thought the series really ended on a high. Uh,
Mhm.
it definitely had my attention in the last couple of episodes, and it was playing about with a lot of, I think, confusing, painful, but fascinating topics, like just really, really interesting concepts, uh, to the point where, like, I honestly, when I went on to, when I came on today to record this with you, didn't know what I thought happened, and as we've kind of talked through it, I've arrived at what I think in my mind Like these are not things that I've knit the whole idea of simulation layers and the repetition is not written anywhere on my pages.
Mhm.
That's just stuff that has occurred to me as we've kind of talked through this that might be a thing.
Yeah,
And in the same way, I think that when we watched the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, like I think that's that these last two episodes are that to this show.
yeah, it's certainly a strong ending to the show. It does feel like it answers some questions. Um, well, giving you more questions to ask of like where other episodes in the series certainly went and just went there and went here's some things to think about. We'll never touch on these again. Like
Yeah,
I said, kids. That was kind of an interesting
yeah.
concept, and then it's just like, what?
Like I say, you could probably marry it back in
Yeah, well,
somewhere.
like I'm thinking is maybe it's just that maybe they are strapped into a machine and it has your digital simulation, just like the Matrix. And Lane and a few other beings have power to come in and leave that physical boundary and go to higher plane.
That that's a really good point because what we could be talking about is the transition of a soul to
Mhm.
the digital plane.
Yeah.
So even more interesting then is the idea is like I talked about is that Lane. I don't think there's a Lane in the real world.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a real physical manifestation of Lane. I think there is what thinks is a manifestation, and then the digital. But I wonder if the original software,
Hmm.
we say it's a software, uh, it's not. Software is like defined. Like we talk about, like software fulfills a purpose. It does a thing.
Hmm.
What if Lane? You could totally be right here, where like maybe the kids thing happened in the real world, transitioned via whatever power, that psychic energy, the souls of those children into the digital world.
Hmm.
Lane being one of those children,
Yeah.
and then the software, her being the software, is more that just she was containable and usable to
Uh
put into the simulation.
huh.
But the purpose of the simulation is the bit that I don't get.
Oh, it's to power up all the robots.
Okay, anyway, I've talked enough. Were other things you wanted to talk about?
Oh, it's just really just to discuss the whole series in the whole and try and maybe make points out of it and like why did her sister go insane? Essentially, what was that all about? Was she kind of rebelling against her role in the family and therefore someone took her presence and corrupted it?
So I think, take the software metaphor.
Hmm.
So Lane is an EXE with a body. That's what they refer to her as. But
Hmm.
what happens when a piece of supporting software changes fundamentally at its core?
I suppose it comes.
Happen, what happens to the software around it? What happens to that?
Uh, I suppose it could just mean like it's essentially corrupted and has come infected with a virus of some sort.
I took it like that. That's a good point as well. Is there could be some sort of idea of a virus, but to me, it's almost just like inability to function. It's
Yeah.
it's like it's like saying, like, oh, hey, you need whatever version of DirectX to run this, and you upgrade to DirectX 13 or 14 or whatever,
Mm.
but you have software that is dependent on previous versions or things that were prior to the change, which causes unexpected behaviors or cataclysmic failure.
Yeah.
So to
Uh-huh.
me, it's almost like Lane is that sort of structural linchpin to the world.
Mm.
And as she alters and twists and changes, uh, the things that were reliant upon her, like that family, like their existence, with the whole point of them, right, was to nurture Lane to see her potential. It seems to me like their usefulness was only relevant until that change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think kind of seems like along the lines. So how about the other thing is maybe because that episode with the sister,
Mm-hmm.
before she got insane, where she was keeps getting like moved about in the world and finding
Yeah,
herself in locations and going, wait, I should be here type thing. Maybe she was essentially being hacked by the knights,
totally.
and
Like
then
that's a really valid explanation.
essentially the system caught on. Hence why there was two of them at that one time. And then by the time she got in the house, the system erased her and just created this broken version of her, essentially.
Oh, it's I'm going to use my favorite word of the moment.
All right.
A simulacrum.
Simulacrum. Do you have one of these like calendars that give you a new word every day?
No, I like words, so I do a lot of reading up on terminology.
All right.
But simulacrum is the idea of um, an approximation, like a copy, but not quite. So, like a homunculus
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
is a is a simulacrum,
Okay.
or a doll is, I think, in a way, a simulacrum.
Does it have to be
It's an image or representation of someone or something, or an unsatisfactory imitation or substitute.
okay? Dolls are unsatisfactory.
So, like, it's like the idea that she's a thing, but she's not the thing. She's not the right enough of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh.
It's interesting. I didn't think of the idea that the simulation would try to replace her. It's sort of a little bit like in Gantz, where that girl, uh, like if you haven't seen Gantz, the
Mhm.
concept is that a bunch of people who killed or kill themselves at the same time wind up in a hotel room in Tokyo where they then go to kill aliens. This is all going to sound a bit mental. The point is, though, is that if they're successful in doing that, they can then go back home. They haven't died. They've been removed from the situation, or copied from the situation, uh, in a way. But the young girl in it who took her own life, she was removed from the situation, put back into that hotel room. But what also happened is it turns out that she was revived. So when she leaves that hotel room to go back after surviving the ordeal, she comes back to find that she's been replaced. And not replaced, she's the replacement. She's the replacement that never needed.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I,
And it's the same sort of thing here. It's like where they've kind of like the total edge case of like, well, we're trying to fix a thing here to like smoothly transition out one and into the other, but what you've ended up with is one that's kind of working and one that's just broken.
yeah. Yeah. Kind of slowly fell away. Yeah. So there's that. we talked about kids being maybe how Lane came to be in the world in the first place, then be self-replicating.
Yep.
Uh, talk about the knights. Knights could be like, say, comparing it to the Matrix a lot, but the knights could be essentially like Neo's posse in the Matrix, where they're trying to rebel against the system, which they are obviously trying to rebel against the system. There's no doubt in that. Um, and breaking free the world from um, Lane's essential and uh, clutches, even though she doesn't seem to be doing anything wrong within it.
Well, the other thing about this is that I think is fascinating, particularly if you think about the whole concept of it taking place in a simulation,
Mm-hmm.
is that it might not be people rebelling against what they think is the simulation.
Uh huh. Okay. Yeah.
They think that there's a god in the Wired,
Hmm. So
and Lane
cultists.
is essentially like, I mean, you leave any developed world to long enough will develop its own cultures and its own ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So the simulation essentially has born this group of people who find a deity in the Wired.
Yeah. I suppose, or has someone that somehow managed to transcend into the upper level, being Eric, Eddie, Erie,
Yeah.
um, himself, and they're focusing him to be the next thing to take over from Lane, really. Any other? Because the whole kind of concept of Lane is very
Difficult.
religious based. I felt like it's
I mean, there's a lot of religion in it,
hmm, there's a
because I
lot
think
of
it's difficult.
yeah, a lot of concepts that fall similar to religious, like a lot of God implications and omnipotent beings and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which was best described in a religious tone, I suppose. It's kind of like
Evangelion.
Evangelion. That's the one, yeah. Uh, and that was from about the same time period as Late, essentially.
The original was much earlier.
Was it earlier?
I think Neon Genesis Evangelion's like, is it not early 90s, late 80s?
Uh, maybe.
You got me doubting myself now.
I don't know. I never. I've always wanted to kind of, like say I kind of probably got to watch it after like 2000s,
95.
95. So yeah, there's like a 3 year gap.
Yeah,
So
similar
it
time.
seems to be a flow in anime to cover kind of like these topics of religion and
I
that.
think it's definitely interesting because it's the mix of like I say, I think it's interesting because it seems relevant today. I think that's
Yeah,
difficult thing that is doing something as genre-ish as looking at technology. It's difficult for something to pull that off, particularly with how quickly technology's moved over the last 20 years. But you know what, we're 23 years later, and this like ages and bits, but you're just like, this is not a million miles away. Like this feels
very
right.
yeah. It feels very close to what the internet has become. Everyone's
Yeah.
online. Uh, Information's at your fingertips, literally, on your phone. The
Yeah.
phones are obviously more square based, not fancy gun phones. Uh, your computers don't take over an entire room just to power some things up,
No,
and you
they
don't
are
need.
water cooled though.
Yeah, you get water coolers, but they still don't fill an entire room with water.
No, it's true.
Uh, um, and you certainly don't stick crocodile clips onto your body to enter the wired. But yeah, it's and the fact of the boom of social media as well, where people are online and doing things, and the VR boom, where you have like the VR chat rooms and stuff like that.
Yep.
Once again, it kind of all concepts that weren't really thought of back then. The VR stuff, maybe there was very poor VR polygon things.
Years and years and years ago,
Hmm.
I would have been maybe 8 or 9 years old
Uh-huh.
and played a virtual reality game.
Oh, on one of those in the wee towery bits and the helmet.
It was a huge, yeah, huge big tower with a massive helmet and wires sticking out everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Wasn't lame, was it?
no. I mean, right now my VR headset I could just pick up and wave around above my head. So
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like you say, just advancement of technology and the way the creator of Lane maybe didn't predict the future as such in his mind, but was like, here's a crazy thought. Maybe we'll talk about this existence force in a kind of like parallel digital real life world.
I think it is a bit futurist in some instances, but I don't think that's the intent. I think the intent is the thematic content around existence and and belief and
Yeah,
uh, but I think the underpinning of technology is fascinating that it hasn't aged more. I think you could have told me that this was from 5 years ago if I hadn't seen it, and I'd have been like, oh, it's a little bit dated. It looks maybe deliberately, but I buy it. Like it seems right.
yeah,
So
certainly.
would you recommend this?
I recommend it. Yeah, yeah. If you like this type of stuff, like, I mean, we've been asking for conspiracy theories all the way through this one because, I mean, if anything, Lane is just one whole conspiracy theory in the Lane world.
Man, I've like what you need is me that that Charlie Day picture with him in front of the board with all the red string going everywhere.
Uh-huh.
That's essentially been me this episode.
Yeah, you should maybe set it up for our thing. The only thing I would say about Lane, it does that thing. I feel that a lot of anime that's trying to be like all sci-fi and futuristic. It just overbears you with like a hell of a lot of kind of like jargon and stuff,
Yeah,
and it just isn't anything. It's just there to fill it up, really.
it's more
And
sparing than others. It's not as
mhm.
aggressive as other shows are with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's it's all right in small doses, but I'm sure I mentioned it to you before when I was watching something. I can't remember what it was, but it's just
Yeah,
like they just kind of like overbearing with that kind of information, and you just kind of get lost. Like
yeah.
I don't understand where it's going anymore because they're just going connector A to B, and it's like basically a highly condensed manual for IKEA furniture. That's what it feels like sometimes. Like, what? I'll just do it like this. This will how it would be, and then you
It'll
create
be
like
fine.
a ladder out of a a bookshelf.
Okay. So we did it.
Yep. That's the end
We
of
got to the end.
Serial Experiments Lane. There's a hell of a lot to talk to digest by the end of it because, like I said,
We're
it's just
now this might be our longest episode ever.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking I think Haruhi maybe one was pretty is about as long as this one.
Oh, we split that into two.
All right, well this might be our longest episode ever.
Oh no. Actually, some we're not quite as long as the second part.
Yeah,
Uh, we spent 3 hours and 15 minutes talking about that movie.
yeah, it's longer in the movie, almost.
Yeah,
But there was a lot to delve into in that whole movie,
there was,
and
and similarly, like I think the last two episodes here really it just unlocks a lot of stuff to talk about. But yeah,
yeah.
so we've reached the end of what is season 4 of Who's That Anime.
Oh,
We will be back next week with a palate cleanser.
yeah, yeah. Before we go, Steve, before you finish that, wrap
Yeah,
this up. Would you recommend this to people?
I think in the same way, like you know how we talked about Haruhi, and I was like, I enjoyed fair enough watching the Melancholy of Harry Suzumiya. It was a good show. Definitely the second season dipped and was not as enjoyable.
Hmm.
Um, but watching the movie after that was completely reaffirming for me. Like it was such a huge thing. Like I know you could probably watch that movie in isolation, and a lot of it wouldn't make sense.
No,
But
wouldn't no.
watching that movie, having gone through what I've gone through to get there,
Hmm.
and being part of the in discussion and being knowledgeable, but also seeing that meta layer on top of what was already a very meta layer on top of a thing. Um, that movie makes you feel like the smartest guy in the room
I don't know.
because I. So I guess what I'm saying is, and like I said this earlier, is like the last two episodes of Lane have a similar thing
Hmm.
where it's like we've created a world and a set of conditions, and there are actors and things happening, and consequence and risk and death, but it's very confusing. There's not a lot of tangible what's going on.
Hmm.
But then these last two episodes come in, and you're right, they do leave more open to interpretation, I think, than what Haruhi does. I think Haruhi sort of narrows that down.
Hmm.
I think what Lane does is it puts a cap on a lot of the stuff,
Yeah,
but more so than Haruhi is that it leaves significant portions of things up to your own interpretation.
yeah, certainly does that. Yeah, it's
But to me, it had that same kind of impact, like where it's like that. I feel like it for Haruhi it was a slog to get through two seasons of it because I didn't really like the second season as much.
no,
But
that's
Lane was good and then dipped and then was okay, but then the last two episodes just made it worth the time.
yeah, yeah. That's I mean, like I say, if you're looking for a fun anime about just stupid shit and
Yeah,
uh just
look
lighthearted,
elsewhere.
yeah, don't go with this one. Because this is deep ass conspiracy shit, man. It's like
Yeah, this is
right down the rabbit hole. You just start and go, oh, that's kind of normal. It's kind of normal. She's kind of weird, and then well, by the end of the second episode, some guy is like shot himself in the head right in front of the lane, and
yeah.
then the family's not there in the third episode, and it just goes, "Meow."
It
And
it does go from like zero to fuck what is happening very quick.
and then it doesn't really let go of that acceleration.
No,
And then
it maintains that. It goes on to cruise control of what the fuck is happening for a significant period of time.
maybe you turn back up at the top. Anyway, talked about it, but recommend it if you want to be like, well, what the fuck? And then go, oh, that's the fuck.
If you, the one I will say that the art is gorgeous. Like the look of the show is amazing. It has a fantastic theme song. I think generally the voiceover and the dubbing is fine. I think you're right. Like Alice is maybe the worst of it. But I do think like when it matters, her dubbing is good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Her consequential dialogue is delivered in a way that I'm not taken out of it. If you want to watch something that will probably make you think, or I think it's definitely, if like I would hope that when we're doing these, people will try and watch them with us, because I feel like there's value in that for people. But at the same time, maybe it's one of those things where you want to hear about the payoff and then go back and watch it and be like, oh, they were right. This is crazy.
Yeah. It is
And
crazy.
yeah, I think you're right. Like it's not a light-hearted romp. This is a thing you want to watch when it's like there's a seriousness to it.
Yeah, and you got time to delve into the board with the
Get
red
your
string.
your string board, yeah.
Yeah, get that.
So yeah,
Out.
we are here. We have arrived. Season 4 is coming to a close. We'll be back with a palate cleanser. We won't ruin what that is. And then we'll be back with a new season the week after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll go to the outro. You're listening to Who's That Anime? We're a podcast. You can find us where all good podcasts can be found. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Spotify, and even Anchor.fm, which is where you can find our home page. If you want to find us on Facebook, you can. It's facebook.com/Who's That Anime. We post when our new episodes are up and some memes and stuff just for lols. We have a YouTube channel where we are putting up the videos of these shows slowly but surely. You can find that at youtube.com by searching for Who's That Anime. Follow likes play video games.
I do.
Twitch.tv/couchfuel. If you'd like to see an archive of all of the games and fun things that Colin has played, and sometimes myself involved in those, you can do that at youtube.com, searching for the channel Couchfuel. Similarly, I like to play some horror games, which I will be doing during the month of October, at Hail Payment. That's twitch.tv/Hail Payment. And I also have a back catalogue and archive of my work at YouTube under the channel Hail Payment. If you'd like to leave a review for us for the podcast, that would be really cool. All reviews are welcome. Critical feedback is always welcome. And if you want to tell a friend that you listen to the show, then that would be cool too.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Just do that. I've been your host, Steve, and he's been your host, Colin.
That's something. Close. We're having a bit of an existential crisis, it would seem.
Yeah, well, just watch Lane. It explains everything. Anyway, we'll see you next week with our palate cleanser. Till then, stay sane.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it? But hang on a second. I have just one question. I listened to everything you had to say. Very patiently, I might add. You'll at least let me pick the curtains for the bedroom, right?
Yes, ma'am. Anything that makes you happy, it's fine with me.
Anything? That's my good student.
Something wrong?
Huh? No. Sorry. Honey, wait here just a minute.
Where are you?
Well, hello there. Oh, hello to you. Have we
met before? We have, haven't we? Ah, did you go to the school where I was student teaching? No, that can't be it. Let's see.
I'm pleased to meet you.
Huh?
Pleased to meet you. Right?
That's right. I'm pleased to meet you then. Well, my name is Alice. Pretty boring name, don't you think so? I'm kind of embarrassed by it. And who are you?
Lain.
Lain?
Friend of yours?
I thought she was someone else. Lain, I've got to go now, but you never know. Maybe we'll run into each other again someday. Bye.
Bye, Lain.
See ya.
You're right. We can see each other anytime. I promise you I'll always be right here. I'm right next to you. Forever.